Hello, pro wrestling fans, and welcome back to Squared Circle Speak. And today, oh boy, do we have a video for you. We're going to do a top 10, and with SummerSlam right around the corner, we decided we're going to do the top 10 SummerSlam match builds of all time. So the build to a match, if you don't really know what that means, it's the storyline heading into SummerSlam. And so we're each going to pick 10 and give our top 10. And this should be interesting to see where we go because I don't know if we have the same style of builds or not. I don't know if we like the same thing or not. So
Should be very interesting.
should be interesting. We're gonna go back and forth, given our 10, 9, 8, 7. We're gonna go back and forth. I am Ryan. He is Nathan, and we are gonna jump into this. Nathan, I'm gonna let you start.
You're gonna let me start?
Yeah, you can kick us off this week.
Oh boy. All right. All right. Well, I guess I'll start with one that was okay, I guess. Because it was this is a guy that we're not really mentioning lately, but it's okay. I'm going with Brock Lesnar and John Cena for the WWE Championship in 2014. This build was crazy because Brock Lesnar was back and we didn't expect him to be back. And he was going after the belt with John Cena. And the build was interesting, Ryan, to say the least, because, you know, we figured Cena would just, we figured it was going to be like, Cena getting the win over Brock Lesnar. And that's how the build was kind of setting it up. Because Cena, we call it WWE math, where if the bad guy, whoever gets like the one-upmanship on the go home show of before the pay-per-view, some reason it seems like the other guy gets their comeuppance at the pay-per-view. And it felt like John Cena, he Brock Lesnar got the better of him, so we thought, Cena's gonna end up winning this match. But no, John Cena got destroyed in this match. And it was very interesting. So that's my number 10, Ryan. Something to start us off. Wasn't that great, but it's my number 10.
That's not one I considered. My number 10 also involves John Cena.
Okay, that's also how we got Suplex City.
Yeah. That was a very interesting build. And a very interesting match. Mine it involves John Cena. We're going the next year. We're going 2016. John Cena versus AJ Styles. Uh, these two first wrestled at what was that, Battleground? Was that their first? Money in the Bank was their first match. AJ Styles beat Cena, and then it ended up becoming like a 6-man deal with the club, and Cena teamed up with Enzo and Cass at Battleground, and then they did the draft, which Amore, Cass, Anderson, and Gallows were all drafted to Raw, and then it was just Cena and AJ on SmackDown, and then August 2nd, on an episode of SmackDown, AJ Styles challenged Cena to a match, and then this is where we got the whole beat up John Cena thing from AJ Styles. And they went back and forth for a while. I'm with you. Like, this wasn't one of the best builds, but it was pretty memorable because we got AJ Styles and Cena for the second time here, and
Yep.
you got the beat up John Cena thing, and it was a pretty big moment for AJ to be feuding with John Cena, and so that's my number 10. Not like not the best, but it's a recent one that stands out to me as one of the decent ones that they've done in the last couple of years.
Agreed. Agreed. Let's see here. I'm going with one that's very interesting to say the least. I'm going with Eddie and Rey Mysterio for the custody of Dominic Mysterio, Ryan,
Wow.
because it was very interesting. Not sure how realistic it was, how you have a custody of a child settled in a wrestling match, but that's what that's what this storyline was, and it was pretty dramatic, Ryan. I mean, Dominic was out there crying real tears, and you had you had Vicky Guerrero for the first time getting involved in wrestling, and all kinds of stuff happening in this build, Ryan. It was something.
You know, you're gonna laugh, but I actually have that pretty high on my list.
Oh wow.
Um, my next one, we're going way back, Nathan. We're going 1994.
Hmm.
And no, we're not doing Undertaker versus Undertaker. We, we are doing Brett versus Owen. The build up to their steel cage match at SummerSlam. It started all the way back at Survivor Series 93, where it was the Hart brothers versus Shawn Michaels team. Owen accidentally got Brett, distracted, caused him to lose. Then the Royal Rumble, Brett, that's when Owen uh, took out Brett and kicked his knee out of his leg, as Owen said. Then we went to WrestleMania where Owen beat Brett, and then Brett won the title. Heading into SummerSlam at King of the Ring, Jim Neidhart aligned himself with Owen, and it was just an emotional ride between two brothers. Brett Owen, a legitimate threat since he beat him at Mania, and I thought this was really cool. Looking back on, and it's just one of those missed opportunities where he probably should have won the title here. Owen probably should have won, but it was just the two brothers going at it for over half a year. This feud went on, and it culminated here. And I thought this was, back then they did feuds forever. They went from Survivor Series to SummerSlam with this thing, and so I this is Brett and Owen always had a good rivalry, and I look back on this fondly. So that's my number 9, Bret Hart, Owen Hart, 1994.
All right, I got a Bret Hart on my next list. On next on my list here. We're going 1997.
Ooh, yeah.
We're going Undertaker, Bret Hart for the title with Shawn Michaels as the referee. This was an interesting build because these three guys were kind of screwing each other over left and right. And the build of this match, Ryan, was if Bret Hart lost this match, he would no longer be allowed to wrestle on U.S. soil.
Yeah.
And if Shawn Michaels intentionally screwed over Bret Hart, he was not allowed to wrestle on U.S. soil. So we had some major stipulations going on in this build. And yeah, it was very interesting. There was a lot of heated uh promos going back and forth in this before we got to this match. And it turned out that Shawn Michaels did screw Brett, kind of, because he accidentally hit the Undertaker. He was aiming for Bret Hart with a chair and hit the Undertaker and got Bret Hart disqualified. So, and that how it happened? Or
No,
no,
he hit him
he
with
hit
the
him.
chair. He hit
Bret
Undertaker with
Hart,
the chair, and then Brett pinned
yeah,
him.
Brett pinned him, so there was no disqualification. Yeah, that's right. So Brett ended up winning.
Yeah.
So that led to Shawn Michaels and Undertaker at Bad Blood for the first Hell in a Cell.
Yep. So big implications there. That was crazy. Yeah. Uh, yeah. That's a good one. I didn't think of that one either. Um, I'm not sure why that didn't come to my head. That one just never really came to my head. Uh, all right, my next one. This is where I have what are we on 8? Yeah. This is where I have Mysterio and Guerrero. I actually enjoyed this for some reason. I guess it's just a sick thrill for me, but I really did enjoy this storyline. Eddie Guerrero turning on Ray and then just being like just a complete asshole. Like this version of Eddie Guerrero was my favorite version of Eddie Guerrero. Him just being a complete piece of crap and spilling that secret and reading Dominic like bedtime stories and stuff, but doing it in like the most sinister way possible. Uh,
Right.
this version of Eddie's the one I remember the most, and I really enjoyed it, and so I think that's why I like this storyline. But Yeah, it is goofy. It is very dumb to have a ladder match for the custody of a child. But it is what it is. But I thought, looking back on it, not as bad as people remember it. The match is good, and then Eddie and Ray played their parts great, and credit to Dominic too, who was a little kid, played his part phenomenally.
Right.
That's my number eight. You kind of talked about it earlier, so I don't want to go too in depth on it, but that's my number eight.
All right. My number seven is a TLC match, right, between the Hardys, Edge of Christian,
Hmm.
Dudley Boys. Uh, this one basically kind of built from the WrestleMania that year. These three teams just kept beating each other left and right through that whole, I don't know, like was that about 5 month span there,
Yeah.
and and it led to there were ladders. It was a ladder match basically in WrestleMania, but then they were like, you know what, you guys are using tables, you're using chairs, I'm using ladders. And that's how TLC was born. They just decided to throw all three, even though all three were involved in the first match. Now they were even more involved, and they were basically saying they were going to use all three weapons. And yeah, so TLC was born, and then it got its own pay per view and all kinds of stuff. So, but this is where it's basically started.
Yeah.
And yeah, it was an interesting build because yeah, each one was using tables on each other in a match, in between matches, and chairs and ladders, and it just built up to this.
Yeah. My next one, it's gonna be. I think this one might shock you a little bit.
Okay.
But I'm going all the way back to last year. I am doing Roman Reigns and Jey Uso for the WWE Universal Championship. Uh, you know, this bloodline feud and this bloodline storyline was one of the best, storylines that they have done in a long time. And this build up was months coming. People wanted it forever. And the when the Usos got involved in the match at Night of Champions, uh, they accidentally hit Sokoa, which turned Roman on them, and then this went back and forth, and Sokoa had to pick a side, and then you had Jay finally stepping up, and Jimmy finally stepping. Like it was crazy. Uh, and I don't remember much about the match, uh, but I do remember that this was a really good storyline heading into SummerSlam, and I didn't know how good it was going to be because it's Jay and Roman, but this was the rise of main event Jey Uso. This was when he struck out on his own, and you had this whole back and forth with Roman Reigns, and the whole bloodline was pretty memorable in my opinion. So, yep, last year's SummerSlam, we have a new one on the list for my
All
number.
right. My next one is another John Cena, Ryan. We have John Cena and AJ Styles at SummerSlam 2016. I like this build because this is where AJ Styles kept saying he was going to beat up John Cena every week, just beat up John Cena. And we got to hear also Carl Anderson talking about his hot Asian wife. So this was this was a pretty funny build leading to this match.
All right, my number six. It was a match that uh, it, I think I would have put this higher had the match not been a joke,
Mm.
and had the match been better. We're gonna go back to 2005, Shawn Michaels versus Hulk Hogan. I would have put this way higher had Hogan not been Hogan, and Michaels would have took it seriously. This goes back. They, Hogan and Shawn Michaels teamed up against Muhammad Hassan and Davari, and then Shawn Michaels turned heel for the first time forever. And then you had Shawn Michaels doing the Larry King thing where he made fun of Hogan, and then he went to Montreal and was a heel there, and then you had babyface Hulk Hogan, but Shawn Michaels was great in this build, with him just eviscerating Hogan every week on the mic, like completely just being the old the old Shawn Michaels, which was the heel Shawn Michaels, and I loved it, and I wish it would have stuck around longer, and I wish this match would have been better.
Yeah.
But the build itself was great. Leading into this match, I enjoyed it. Shawn Michaels was great, and then you had Hogan doing his Hogan stuff, but Shawn Michaels really led this build and was just amazing in this build. So that is my number. What are we on? 5, 6, 6.
That was your 6. My 5. That was my number 3. So,
You have it
uh,
that high? Oof.
yeah,
I
my
guess
number
I
5.
guess the match dropped it for me.
My number 5 is Bret Hart and British Bulldog
Ooh,
for the Intercontinental title.
yeah,
This build was interesting because it was very personal and they were being pretty cordial with each other. And it was brother with brother-in-law, and this is the first time we got to see Bret Hart's wife and British Bulldog's wife, and they start talking about the whole Hart family and all that stuff. It all got intertwined into this match. It was in Great Britain, and all the British fans were, rooting on British Bulldog, even though Bret Hart was a face too. Two faces main eventing for the Intercontinental title, and yeah, it was a great build. And then obviously British Bulldog got the roll up victory on Bret Hart.
yeah. Great build. It was one of the very few builds that was built just based on mutual respect and not one of them turning on each other. So,
Yeah.
uh, yeah, I'm gonna go way back, Nathan. I'm gonna go back to the very first SummerSlam,
Okay.
and we're gonna go with the big build of the Mega Powers versus the Mega Bucks, Hogan and Savage versus Ted DiBiase and Andre the Giant. This all stemmed from the WrestleMania 4 tournament, which Macho Man won, and then it led to the Mega Powers, uniting, and then going with, and then you had DiBiase try to buy the belt, and he aligned himself with Andre, which led to the whole thing. So, yeah, this was a very first SummerSlam. They had to have a big build going into this. You had to have a big build, and this was pretty good. One of the first it was we got to see Macho Man and Hogan unite, which was crazy. They did the big handshake leading up to this thing, and Miss Elizabeth showed up in a tiny little skirt showing her underwear, which was cool. Uh, but yeah, we had to show some love to the '80s, and so that's my number 5. The Mega Powers versus the Mega Bucks.
My number 4 is let's see here. I think it was where do I have it? I think my number 4 is gonna be Edge and Undertaker. Hell in a Cell.
Ooh,
Uh
okay.
SummerSlam 2008. We were there. We
Yeah,
saw that one. Um this build was pretty good. Uh this was Undertaker's this is when he came back, right?
yeah,
Like
yeah,
when he
yeah,
was
yeah.
like one of the times he came back. This is when he became the dead man again. And he started using Hell's Gate, the submission hold and stuff, and that was playing into the build.
Yeah.
And then you had Edge with Eddie Guerrero, and I think he had the Edge heads at the time.
Yeah, yeah. This was when he had Vicky and Axel Ryder and Hawkins and Chavo, and I think he had a whole group at that point.
Yeah. But yeah, it was a pretty good build for this match. And then obviously Undertaker choke slammed him to hell and fucking
Yeah,
fire flew out of the ring. That was crazy. But yeah, it was a pretty good build for this one. I put it at number 4 just because I was there.
yeah. I mean, it was pretty cool. Like that was like kind of the last before they switched over to like the PG era. That
Yeah.
after this, it kind of went to crap for a long time.
Yeah.
All right, my number 4. We're gonna go CM Punk versus Brock Lesnar. uh,
Oh,
from summer what was that SummerSlam
2013, 2011.
2013. Yes, 2013. You had the whole Paul Heyman aspect in this build between these two, and You had Brock Lesnar being the dominant Brock Lesnar, but then you had CM Punk who was not going to give up, and they they built it off of basically Punk and Heyman, which was great. You know, I think it made it a lot better having Punk and Heyman do it instead of just having Brock there all the time. But yeah, that was I was a huge CM Punk fan, and so I thought this was a good build, and I thought it was pretty cool to have him go up against Lesnar in this thing, even though he ended up losing in the end. But this was right before Punk left. I mean, this was one of his last big things he did. He wasn't around much longer after this, so
Yeah, that's true.
this was his last SummerSlam until maybe this year. So,
Right.
but yeah, it was just cool seeing Punk on the opposite side of Heyman for once. Heyman was with him when he did his heel run earlier. Now it was him as a face going up against Heyman, and then you had, uh, you know, he went on good. Yeah, it was just pretty cool stuff.
All right, my number two, because you took my number three with Shawn Michaels and Hogan. My number two is Bret Hart and Owen,
Ooh,
brother
okay,
versus brother,
yeah, that
SummerSlam 90,
had that a lot
SummerSlam
higher than I
92.
did.
Yeah, because I mean, it was brother and brother, and
Yeah,
it resonates with me because we're brothers, big
yeah,
wrestling fans. But also because they intertwined, like I said before, they had the Hart family. We got introduced to all the Hart family in that British Bulldog match, but then in this one, we got introduced to it in a different way because they were basically saying that you know Bret Hart was the favorite son, and Owen was taken, didn't like that, and the family tried to say they weren't, but it kind of did look like they were. So
yeah,
yeah, it was an interesting build with all this family aspect and how it all played out in the end with towels being thrown and all kinds of stuff.
I have a feeling we're gonna have the same number one.
I think.
My number three, we're going 2015. We're going Seth Rollins versus John Cena, which was the winner take all match for the WWE World Heavyweight Championship and United States Championship.
Yep.
I thought this one was really good, and they really made Rollins feel like a legitimate threat. And I think the only reason this stands out and the reason this is a big thing is Cena getting the broken nose, the legitimate broken nose, is what
Yeah.
really I think made this match, or this build better. I think the build kind of may have sucked uh without without the broken nose, but the broken nose made it seem legitimate and made it seem a lot better. And then it was winner take all, two titles on the line. No one really knowing who Rollins was going to actually win this thing. So that was cool. Since you already did your number two, I'll do my number two. My number two is Undertaker versus Stone Cold Steve Austin, 1998, which was the Highway to Hell SummerSlam. This
Mhm.
this was a wild ride. this this was peak Attitude Era. It was, you know, Undertaker. This was when Austin lost the title to Kane in a first blood
First
match.
blood. Yeah.
He won the title back the next night. You had intertwining from Kane, Undertaker, Vince McMahon, Stone Cold Steve Austin, Mankind. Undertaker won a match dressed as Kane to become number one contender, which was insane in itself. And then you had Undertaker and Austin teaming up on the road to SummerSlam as a team, and they won the tag team titles before they ended up getting. So this was just all over the place, and it was the Attitude Era, so you never knew what was going to happen on Raw every week, and it was nuts. But this was a fun one. I remember watching this back in the day, and it was just you never knew what the hell was going to happen with these two. So
Right.
that's my number two. I think we have the same number one, so we can probably just both say it at the same time.
Yeah, I think we probably can because this is how brothers think.
Yep.
Yeah, definitely going with Triple H, Shawn
Versus Shawn
Michaels,
Michaels, 2002.
2002. This was insane because we didn't expect Shawn Michaels to ever wrestle again,
Yeah.
and then the way they did the reveal of him being attacked, and it was Triple H that attacked him, and he said he was doing it for his own good because he can't wrestle anymore. And oh my God, it was nuts. I lost my ever
Yeah.
living crap. I mean, I was so freaking going. I was going insane when Shawn Michaels said he was going to wrestle Triple H. I was
Yeah.
like,
I'm
beast
telling you
mode.
what, we had a Shawn Michaels DVD.
Yep.
I still have it. It's up here on my DVD collection. And they had like this match and like the promotion. I've watched the build up to this match on there, that video package so many times. Like I could say it word for word, like the
Yep.
entire promo. And then you had the fake out when they were gonna reform DX, and then Triple H hit him with the pedigree, and then Michaels was the next week or a couple weeks later he was in the parking lot, and Triple H was like, "I'm gonna find out who did it," and then Shawn Michaels says, "It was you, Hunter," and then it was he did it to prove that Shawn Michaels was weak. I mean, this was great, led to an unsanctioned street fight. None of us, we did not expect this match to ever happen, and seeing Michaels come back, this was
Yeah.
God, this was great. And this was one of the best builds, I think, not just in SummerSlam history, but in like wrestling history. I think
Agreed.
their whole feud between this and then they had the elimination chamber, and then they had all this stuff. I think the Triple H Shawn Michaels feud itself is one of the best like feuds of all time, in my opinion. And this build itself to SummerSlam was so crazy because we kind of thought it was going to be Triple H, that attacked him, but no one knew for sure because he was kind of a face heading into it.
Yep.
You know what I mean? Like he was kind of like, and then they said he hit him with the pedigree because he just didn't want to do the DX thing anymore. So it was like, oh, he's still a face. He just didn't want. And then, yeah, the video footage where they zoomed out and enhanced it, and it was like, God, in 2002, I thought that was the coolest fucking shit. But yeah, this was number one by far. When you first said you want to do this was the first thing that popped in my head.
Yeah.
This one. So I have a couple honorable mentions that may have almost made the list but didn't. Cena versus Bryan, I thought was pretty good. Where Daniel Bryan finally won the world title. I thought that feud up was pretty good, just due to Daniel Bryan not wanting to be the B plus player and wanting to prove he actually belonged. And it was kind of him versus Cena and versus the Authority at the same time. And Cena wasn't really wanting him to do it either. And it was just, you know, that's a pretty good one. I thought going back and watching. Uh, wasn't there was a fatal four way that they had at SummerSlam with like, what was it? Brock and Samoa Joe and Roman and Braun, I think was the four. And I thought that build up too was pretty cool because it was like they actually made Samoa Joe a threat and legitimate heading into that one. So there's a couple other ones that you could talk about with SummerSlams in the past, but uh I think we hit most of the pretty big ones.
Yeah, I think so too. If you like this, hit the like button. If you like these top tens, and subscribe if you want to hear more of these top tens. Give us some suggestions in the comments, and we'll do some new top tens. You just tell us what you want to hear, and hit the notification bell so you know when we're going to upload another top 10 video because we like doing these. Sometimes we go long on these because we like to go in a little, we start going on little spiels. But definitely uh, send us your suggestions. We want your guys' input on what kind of top tens we should do.
Yeah. So give us your suggestions on the best SummerSlam builds. I know we missed a lot. You could throw in the Nexus if you wanted to throw them in there. You could throw in CM Punk versus Jeff Hardy. Give us your suggestions for what your favorite SummerSlam builds of all time is. Like Nathan said, give us your suggestions for future top 10 videos. As always, we thank you, and we will see you next week on Squared Circle Speak.
Later.